success stories told by the people who live them.
We're going to have some guests on this show that everybody knows, and we're going to have guests on this show that nobody knows yet.
One by one, Nick Hyder is adding hits to the hit streak.
Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Hit Streak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder, and I've got an extra special treat for you in the Hit Lab with me today. Joining me today is none other than the Tennessee Titan legend, top radio host, and broadcaster, Blaine Bishop. Blaine, brother, I am so excited to have you in the building today. What the hell's going on?
Hey, man, it's only fitting, Nick, knowing you guys for a long time, that the hit man is in the hit streak, man. I mean, what the heck are you talking about, man? It's right. Only fitting that we match up and have, this conversation.
That's right. Well, and that's what we're doing. You've been hitting people your whole life.
Unfortunately for me and maybe them. I don't know.
That's definitely for them. But we're adding hits to the hit streak all day long today. So, man, the reason I'm so excited to hang out with you today is, as I was telling you before, I went back and I've seen 40 interviews that you've done in the past. I went back and looked at a lot of them. And what I'm most interested in as a part of the founder story is like everybody talks about what happened on the field, what we watched, and that was cool. I've heard those stories a lot, and we're going to get into those a little bit. But like there was at least two decades of development that led to all that success on the field. And in my opinion, like that's really important.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. It's a lot more that goes into it. It's not like I think a lot of people think most athletes just roll out there and just play, and it's a kid's game, and they just have a lot of world of talent. There's a lot more that goes into that, at least for the majority of the players. Naturally, some of them are super gifted, super talented, God-given gifts that they've been given. But there's other players who are more like me and most in the majority who were, just athletic enough to make the professionals and then get an opportunity to take it to the next level through hard work and training and belief in yourself.
Boom. That's the catch right there. So, I didn't play at as high of a level in professional sports as you did, but I did get to play.
Are you baseball now? You big time now. I mean, I've been knowing you for a long time, so don't undercut yourself there.
Well, the reason that I did is Coach Forehand was talking about it yesterday. Is I played smarter than most of the folks to accommodate maybe some of the lack of physical ability that I had, because I was one of the smallest guys in the clubhouse every year, and my goal was when I took my shirt off on day one in the locker room, I wanted everybody to be like, "Who the hell is that?"
Well, man, I think you're probably taller than me, so how do you think I felt?
I know. That's exactly right. That's what I'm saying. So, and we were talking about the Derek Jeter series that's out right now and how good that is. Captain. And, the captain and how strong, in my mind, what stuck out is just the belief in himself.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That's funny because he was such a high-profile person as well as a high pick, in the draft, even though I think he thought he should go, number 1 or 2 or what have you. There was still doubt. And it even seeped into his brain a little bit when you're watching it. So it was really kind of intriguing to see how he battled back from those failures to make him into the player he was through the minor leagues when everybody was doubting him. And, a little bit when he was coming out, we go high in the first round. You still, obviously you could play. But once he got in the minor leagues, they were still doubting him. And he was giving them a reason to doubt. Right. And then that's kind of what put him over the top and made him who he was and made him mentally tougher and stronger in those critical moments that he was basically, a big time hitter in those critical moments, which really makes him stand out over most players besides all the other attributes he's had for, the Yankees.
So we got to go back to the beginning then, because the one thing that when I started building businesses, I learned real quick, no matter what industry the business is, all the ones that are successful have certain things in common. Okay, so no matter what sport or position or even who the athlete is, they all have certain things in common to get to that level. And the one thing I figured out is nobody got to the professional level of sports in any sport by accident. It was 100%. That's my target. That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going to get to. Right. So there was at some point in time, you decided that was going to be your path. Do you remember how old you were when that was? Or how young you were, I guess I should say.
Man, I would say it was always a dream of mine. And I know I haven't told anybody this part of the story. Every birthday, probably since I was 5 years old, because I started playing football at 5, my dream was that I make it to the NFL. I never talked about playing in the NFL growing up. That was just something I didn't ever talk about. Even when I got to college. So that was my birthday wish every single time after I was 5.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So that's when the dream started, right? So just like Jeter said the same thing, he always wanted to be the shortstop for the Yankees. I always wanted to play professional baseball. Maybe I wasn't precise enough with my target. I just wanted to get there. I never really said, this is the team I'm going to play for and catch for and all those things. And I think if you have a specific target, you have a better shot of hitting it.
True.
You know?
I don't think I ever had a target. Naturally, your first team is always the one you're attached to when you're in Little League. So I played for the Dallas Cowboys. So I was always a big Cowboys fan growing up. And then growing up in Indianapolis, Indiana, we didn't have a team. So people forget they moved to, there when I was in high school, Indianapolis Colts. So that was really cool to actually see a team live. But growing up, I was kind of more of a Cowboys. And then I was a big Walter Payton fan, too, because Chicago was most of the games that came on. And I was a running back, too, as well. So I really, looked up to him as one of the running backs. So Tony Dorsett and getting those Dorsett cleats with the flap on them.
Oh, yeah.
That and Walter Payton with the kangaroos. See, the kangaroo cleats, yeah. So I was really big on those guys and really followed more so running backs than anything else growing up.
So the dream sparks a drive, all right? And with the drive, there comes... So first of all, were you a big kid? I wasn't a big kid. I actually grew like 3 inches in college.
I definitely was not a big kid. So I don't think I really grew until I grew probably a couple inches in college, but I didn't grow. I was 5 feet freshman year in high school.
Oh my gosh!
And then I grew the next year coming back to 5'5", and everybody's like, "Dang, you grew a lot." And I was still only 5'5", right? So it was like, "Dang!" And so then the next couple years I grew to like 5'8". Before I even graduated. So there was a lot of doubt that I was actually too small even for high school to be that kind of impact player.
That's right.
So it kind of worked itself out as time went on each and every year. Now I played freshman, but then I started JV too, and then I got to dress for varsity. So obviously I was doing pretty well, but definitely size was always a question because I went to a private Catholic school and I was recruited in there. So through other people showing interest and them connecting us.
Well, man, it's first of all, I want to talk about how, and I don't know the answer to this. We talked a little bit pre-show about how your parents supported you because, like, you're a role as a parent. We're parents, and I was thinking about this the other night with watching the Jeter documentary about how his parents prepared him for being a mixed family in that time in the United States. They're like, dude, it's not going to be easy, and it's actually going to be really awkward and at some point rude, So, your parents, you want to protect your kids, but at the end of the day, your real job as a parent is just make sure they get up every time they get knocked down. It's not to keep them from getting knocked down because life's going to knock them down. It's to make sure they know how to get back up. It's to make sure that you're there saying, "Hey, get up! I got you. You got this." All that support to get up, right? So, how were your parents' role in your development? Because if they're protecting you, they're saying like, you might want to study a little harder because you're 5'5" and want to play in the NFL.
Right. Well, I don't know if I even really told my mom. I think she thought it was a dream, but I don't think she ever thought that would happen. I grew up mostly in a single parent home. My wife and my dad divorced when I was 3, but he was around till I was really like till 10, and then he got remarried, and then kind of we were just communicating. So I had a real good support system, not only from my mother, but I was part of the Big Brothers Big Sisters program, as well as the director of the Boys and Girls Club, Ralph Dow, who's passed away. He's a really important person in my life, who really actually believed in me and said that I was special. So he was kind of the linchpin to actually also get me to Cathedral High School.
Okay.
Because his son went there. But he was the director there, and he was a professor, but he was the director of the Boys and Girls Club, Ralph Dow. So he was really kind of the linchpin because, growing up where I grew up, kind of, underprivileged area a little bit, and going to the Boys and Girls Club, walking distance every day. Everything that I did from swimming to chess team, to playing football, basketball. I had a lot of success, and I had this work ethic that he thought, man, I haven't seen a guy like you. Karate class. I was doing all these things, and I was having success. And the backdrop of it all, I became a really great swimmer.
Okay.
So swimming and chess was really kind of my two big things outside of football that I really loved and liked doing. So he got me involved in all those different things and really helped me believe in me. Build up this, and I don't want to call it, it's this mental fortitude that I couldn't be broken. And I can't say he just did it, but my mother, who was a strong-willed, tough woman, and I grew up around all her sisters, which were 9 of them, as well as my 2 uncles. So I would say there was a lot of different people that brought different things to the table for me. But I would say he was a pivotal point besides my mother and her strong-willed, and to help me be disciplined. However, she accomplished that. I was always a great student. So she was like, hey, no football, no school then.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't do well in school, then you won't play any football.
There you go.
Or any sport at that matter. So that was ingrained in me from the beginning.
Yeah.
So the work ethic that you do to play the sport was the same thing I approached and attacked academics. So that was really valuable. And sports teach you some different things, but I think help believing in yourself, and then so many people telling me what I couldn't do. It really got, I'm going to say, annoying. It got to the point where I almost didn't even listen.
Right.
It was like, oh, you're too small, you're too this or that. And I'm like, I never said I was any of those things. All I said is I love to play football. And when we get on the football field, it will show out, and we will see who will be the better player.
That's right.
And that's kind of how I approached it. So, yeah, it was kind of interesting all the way through. Even I, looking back on it, wouldn't predicted that I made it to the league and then had the success I had. Yeah.
Well, obviously swimming is unbelievable for training your whole body.
Yeah.
Flexibility, fluidity, strength, all of the whole
I wanted
package.
to be Greg Louganis.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, you guys know who that is, right?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. But I remember he hit his head.
Yep.
On the diving part of it. But I love diving too on the 3-meter platform. I used to do, all the flips and everything and try to be perfect at it. And there was also another thing that I didn't bring up that was real vital throughout that process growing up, and that was Ralph Dow helping me get to go to Culver Military Academy. And I only went there in the summer times. They actually wanted me to go to high school there, but I wasn't going to go there for high school. But it also showed me how much I love discipline. You love it. It's almost like loving the grind to work out. Bouncing a quart off your bed every day, having everything perfect. Now, there's some flaws to that, too, because everything's not going to be perfect. But if you didn't, you had to stand in your line. And I was in the drum and bugle corps, didn't have any type of musical background. That was just a way to get me into the Culver Military Academy. So I carried the bass drum. So all I was the left, right,
Yep.
up, 2, 3, 4, your left, right, left. I was that guy. And so, developing those relationships there was huge. And I really believe, and I know it for a fact because until I got drafted, that's why at the moment it was the Houston Oilers, but the Tennessee Titans, K.S. Bud Adams drafted me. He went to Culver Military Academy.
I'll be dang.
And so did the New York Yankees.
Yep.
Owner, as well as a whole bunch of big time people. So unbeknown to me, at first when I got there, I was like, I don't want to go here. But after I left there, I ended up loving it, and I did it 3 summers.
Wow. That's awesome.
Going up to high school. So those were all kind of different little things, and maybe one other little core thing that I did that I got involved with through my aunt, which was called, and it kind of showed out throughout my career, was Center for Leadership Development Group. And I went there every summer, probably since I was 10 years old. And we just do a program for 6 weeks or so where I would go every other day.
Man.
And it's just kind of crazy because I was the captain at every level that I played. And it wasn't like I was the best player. I was actually never the best player on my team, or maybe even not even the second best.
Yeah.
So those leadership qualities continued on. So all the things that they helped me through the process. So that was really big too. So those were some of the things that kind of in the backdrop that leading up to who Blaine Bishop, the hitman was, those were the vital things throughout my life.
Bam. Well, dude, it's crazy. Coach and I were talking, Coach Foreign and I, when he was in here yesterday, we were talking about how, every level that you get to next, you find the work ethic increases. Like, so the big leaguers work harder than everybody else. And then, on one hand, you say, well, they got better food, better facilities, better everything, but they're still putting in more time, and there is no consistency without discipline. Like one leads to the next, right? So between the swimming and the military academy and everything else, I mean, that's like the perfect storm, dude. The chess, holy cow! Like you're learning how to anticipate and play ahead, dude.
Yeah. All those attributes, I'm telling you, were the key to my success when I got to the league. Now you had to evolve and continue to grow, but my secret workout. I would go swimming and do all these different swim workouts in the off season.
Damn.
To play in the league. And then everybody was like, man, you never get tired. Well, if I can swim laps with only 30 seconds resting, I'm up there doing, freestyle all the way down in 30 seconds. You think you're going to die and not make it.
That's right.
This is nothing.
That's right.
Matter of fact, I'm going to yell at you for messing up for bidding that gap, not bidding the right gap, man, by the way. So it was kind of interesting. Swimming was probably the biggest as far as my conditioning to continue to evolve as an athlete. Besides, changing your workout and your diet, you got more free time, so then you can dedicate and work on your key to weaknesses in the game. And that's where I think a lot of players go wrong when they get in the league. They keep continually doing the same things that they've always done, because they've had success. But if you don't evolve, just like anything else in life, you better evolve your workouts, and only you your weaknesses. So continue to grow those weaknesses, and so they turn to actually strengths. And so those are kind of the things that I modeled every offseason when I was trying to be a better player. That doesn't mean I wasn't a good player or a great player, but everybody has weaknesses. And so, everybody thinks, all the superstars are great, they have no weaknesses. They do too.
That's right.
They do. So you got to exploit them, or try to put yourself in position where you're not exploited in those positions and keep yourself out of those positions.
So this is all leading to becoming the Hitman, right? Mm-hmm. So the Hitman is a finished product of all those years and lessons and failures and triumphs and all those things adding up to become the Hitman. And another thing that I've noticed, especially about guys that are physically smaller in stature, not weaker by any means, but like some people, just God gave certain gifts, right? And he gave them more than others, right? But somebody told me one time, they said, Nick, pay attention to the limits that you have, because you're the one that set them, right? And it's all reference. So if you want to do something, if you want to lift heavier, then pick up something heavier, and then what was heavy before is no longer heavy anymore. You know what I mean? It's all reference, and those are all limits that you put in your own mind. And all the great champions have that magic ingredient. They call it the it factor in the captain.
Yeah, I would say so. I would agree with that. I really never put any limitations on myself as far as lifting weights, as a football player, because that's probably one of the biggest things, is I learned that not only did I need power that way, which I was doing, 550 pounds squatting, benching 405, like it was nothing. So I put in that kind of work, but I needed also flexibility with those muscles, because the smaller muscles actually increase the power and input of the bigger muscles. So when it came to lifting, running, 4.4, I was still elite, but I wasn't on that elite plane where you were on the elitist. And so I was never going to get there. But what I was going to do is I was going to continue to work and not let that carry me or pull me down. I felt like I had enough with 42.5-inch vertical at the combine and things of that nature that I could, but I was going to beat you with my mind, and that's where the chess comes in. And so I love those individual battles within a game in the game. And so you got to look at every individual matchup, and then you have to seize those opportunities and know what you're going to do and balance that being a quick thinker. So I really believe being a quick thinker as an athlete, as well as your eye control and eye discipline, is really a part of it. And I'm sure you know that, being a big baseball guy. So I think a lot of athletes who are elite players in high school and college, and all of a sudden they get to the pros, they're just good players. I think it really has to do with being a quick thinker and their eye control and how fast their eyes can actually attain and assess information and dissect it and go.
That's right. I mean, you were beating guys that ran a faster 40 time. You were beating them to the spot.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that's because you were beating them up here long before the body took over. You know what I mean? And that's the foundation of a great business owner too, man. All great businesses have those exact same traits that you just mentioned that all elite athletes have. That's why, as somebody that hires folks all the time, I love the athlete. I love the athlete. They know how to compete, right? They know how
grind.
They know how to work.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So, all right. So how did you became the hitman? How did that become a thing, right? Because my dad played football, and you know my dad.
Yeah.
And Dad was a big college football, and you were we used to always watch the Titans game during the heyday, and he talked about you and McNair more than anybody because he was like, McNair is just nobody's tougher than that dude on the offense. Like he just plays through stuff that everybody else don't.
Toughest guy I've ever played with. I put Eddie up there too as well with myself. But I would put McNair at number one. Even above myself.
He talked about you all the time because, my dad's like 5'9". You know what I mean? He was like, dude, that guy plays larger than anybody on the field.
Yeah. Well, I had to come up with something to say. This doesn't revolve around Hitman, but every time someone would say to me, dang, man, you're a lot smaller than I thought. I said, oh, I know. I just play big.
That's
so that was
right.
certainly my answer because I got that so much. I had to figure out what would my comeback be, because, I guess people envision when you start having these big hits that, I'm just some big, forceful big guy, there's like I'm 6'2" or something, and I wasn't. So that hitman kind of evolved when I got to college.
Okay.
And I people look at my IG, Blaine Bishop 23, is I got a Letterman jacket, and I was a defensive back, and I was aggressive, but I played cornerback in college, and high school, by the way, and running back. When I got to Ball State, I eventually became that aggressive man-to-man corner guy. That's all I did was play man-to-man and blitz, really, from the boundary corner. People start calling me Hitman, so I kind of took it. A good friend of mine, Henry Hall, gave me that, and it kind of stuck with me, so I put it on my Letterman jacket, and that's kind of my Facebook page.
That's awesome.
The Hitman, and then my number and everything, which was 22 in college at Ball State.
So, in the NFL, you had tons of success, 4-time Pro Bowler, unbelievable. I've got a list of awards that we would run out of time that I can't go through them all, and all the acknowledgments that you've had. But let's talk about your college career for a second, because that was when you really got on the national scale. I mean, they do a lot for you there, and you do a lot for them still to this day.
Oh man, well, I'm gonna go back and tell you the full story of how I even got noticed. And this is really crazy, so this will give a lot of people a lot of hope out there, is coming out of high school, naturally been in Indianapolis, we Cathedral High School, Fighting Irish, so I was a big Notre Dame fan kind of growing up. I wanted to play at Notre Dame, and we had the same uniforms and everything else, and naturally Notre Dame, Lou Holtz, and you can't play here, you're not good enough. And I made everything, all city, state, metro, you name it. At defensive back, even though I was playing running back and had over 700 yards or something on limited carries, I thought, man, I'm not a Division I player, and that was really my ultimate goal. All I wanted to do was play Division I football.
Okay.
So eventually got to the point where everybody was saying I was too small, and got back to that. So I was like, okay, so where do you think I can go? I went to my head coach, Coach McGinley, who was also the president of the school. And he says, well, you got all these Division II offers. You should maybe just go to one of these Division II schools. So I teamed up with a couple of my buddies from high school. We went to a Catholic college, St. Joseph's College.
Okay.
In Rensselaer, Indiana.
Okay.
I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. I had never heard of Rensselaer. So
it's safe to say nobody in this room
it was only an hour and a half away, by the way, and it is closed now.
Oh, wow.
It's been closed for 4 years. Now, it's attached to other universities, but as far as their athletic programs and everything else. So, went there. I'm telling the story because probably the fourth game I played there, unfortunately, we had a lot of injuries on the offensive side at running back. So, the first three running backs were injured. And I practiced, and they knew I played in high school running back. So, I was a four-string running back, but I was starting defensive back. So, I ended up playing this game offense and defense. So I scored every way known to man. I returned a punt for a touchdown, intercepted the ball for a touchdown, ran 2 touchdowns at running back.
That's awesome.
I did all these different things, right? Unbeknown to me, after the game, 2 NFL scouts was there, and this is probably not even 4 months after I graduated from high school, and they said I wasn't a Division I player. 2 scouts after this game told me that I had NFL potential. And I looked at those dudes and said, you got me confused with somebody else. They were like, no. I said, no. And I went immediately to my high school coach told me that I wasn't even a Division I player, man. Yeah. So how are you going to tell me? I was trying to blow out their smoke. I thought they were just messing with it. I said, no, we were here to look at someone else on the other team and we saw you. I think it was their running back. I can't remember who we were playing. But they said, you definitely got an opportunity to play in the National Football League. Literally 4 months after I was told I wasn't a Division I football player. So that was the Jets and the Giants. So I took notice to it, but I was kind of so focused at the time. I really, and that's just who I am, I really didn't pay a lot of attention till the season was over. And when the season was over, I made Division II All-American.
Okay.
So instead of being pissed about, not being a Division I player, I went right back to my high school coach and the president of the school said, am I now a Division I football player?
Dude, like...
Meanwhile, I really wanted to say, how you like me now? But right. I did not.
Like Derek Jeter, he said, I told you so.
Yeah, right. I did. I really did because I really needed his help too. I said, so where do you think I should go? He said, you got to leave? I said, yes, absolutely. I said, I want to play Division I football. He says, well, if it was me, because I said, what would you do? He says, well, Indiana State, they don't have a really good football program. And he knew my situation. I couldn't afford to pay. I couldn't pay school at all. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, you can go to Ball State. They have a solid program. And he said, you can go to and probably get to play right away. And you can go to IU. Indiana State, he said the same thing. And then he said IU, but you'll probably have to wait a year, and then you'll probably play there. But I never asked him, though, what changed in 6 months? Because now it became 6 months. And like, what changed? I'm still the same size guy.
Yep.
But I did not. But it was eating at me to not ask him, because I'd already sat there and he had listened to me. So obviously he knows that I'm now Division I. So I don't know what changed over a matter of 6 months, but he definitely was convinced I was. So he picked up the phone, called Ball State immediately, got their recruiting coordinator on, and they was like happy to have me and said, yeah, sure, bring him down. And the rules were different then. So you had to sit out a year, but I got to practice.
Okay.
So I practiced everywhere. Wide receiver, running back, option quarterback, whatever they needed their best player on the other team, I was at, because I could all I do was practice. Defensive back.
Yep.
So going into spring, Coach Mentor, who was the defense coordinator, who's been all over the place. His son just left Vandy. Now he's the DC at Michigan, but he's been head coach at Kentucky or Cincinnati and some different places. But he said, you're gonna be competing to start over a defensive back at corner. I said, oh, what about running back? He said, oh, no, you 4-string running back. Do you want to play running back? I said, not at 4-string, so I want to compete to start. I said, but I just want to ask you one thing, Coach. And, back then I looked back and said, man, I was a really confident guy.
Mm-hmm.
Who getting benched? That's what I said to him.
That's awesome.
Who's getting benched? Talking about 19 years old, telling the DC, he's going to move me to cornerback. You're going to compete to start at cornerback. I said, who getting benched? His answer was, oh, don't worry about that. You'll be fine.
Oh, man.
Yeah, this is it. Because that's how confident that I knew, and I was so driven just to prove I was a Division I football player.
Dude,
it was crazy.
We've launched so many, helped people launch so many businesses over the last few years, and the difference between the businesses that launch and the ones that fail to launch is 100% the belief of the person that launched it, just like you was just talking about. Like I have a note here right here. So you had something that I didn't have as a young athlete, which was you got to have a certain relationship with yourself, to have a certain belief in yourself, which comes with confidence. I was a confident player, but I gave too much credit to other folks, to other players in my heyday. I was, I wouldn't have said who's getting benched. A lot of times I just took what the coach said for, oh, okay. I didn't, the power of no, it's very powerful if you use it right.
Well, I have to say this though. I felt like, and maybe your position was a little bit different, is that I had nothing to lose. And that came from everybody telling me, oh, you can't do this. Oh, you're too small for that. Oh, you're too slow for this. Oh, you're not a Division I player. I'm going, what do I have to lose? What do I do? So who cares? It's almost like striking out. Oh, well, he got me this time. We'll see the next time, because I know what he pitched me. I know how he tried to set me up. So I think I had that mentality, and I think a lot of it comes from the grit of maybe my background of where I grew up.
Yeah.
A part that I miss saying is, I was such a good student and walking to class and doing really well at school. Where I was from, some people didn't like that.
Yeah.
They didn't like that I was a good student, or that the teacher liked me, or I was always the one giving the answers So there was sometimes I would just walk home and I'm getting in a fight just because they didn't like me.
That's right.
It's because of that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, dang. So I had to defend myself when there was no reason to defend myself for something that I was doing a good job at.
Would you say that growing up, your journey was easy? Everything was just handed to you, right?
But wait, where did I mess up the mic, man?
So-
I would say it was naturally the entire opposite of that. I would say, and some of it, I would say it became a crux to me, and I would always find something if it wasn't as I got older to make sure that I had that extra edge. So as I was talking about all the different things and hurdles and failures throughout the process, I even did that in the league. So every week I would watch film and I would try to find something to make me actually hate the player. One thing that I learned through all my development is I think I was talking about the mental hurdles and things and confidence that you got to have, but you also have to be able to be mentally strong and be able to finesse yourself through tough times. And, the NFL can get very tough mentally as well as physically. So I figured out how to mentally play games with myself and make up stories about players that I was playing that they actually did something to me.
Wow.
To me or even my family. And people actually I know. A Little League team member was, we had two guys of us who made it in the NFL. Derek Mays, he went to Notre Dame, wide receiver, All-American, got drafted top 3 rounds. He wasn't a dominant player, but he was a good player. He started. And, I envisioned my mom had gotten carjacked and robbed really earlier that year. And I said that he was the guy that did it.
Wow.
A guy that I actually know, by the way. And so when I'm in game mode, telling a game story, how I was so convinced throughout the week that through this process, even the coaches knew I would make up something every week. They don't know what it was.
So
They knew
awesome.
Come by Thursday that Blaine Bishop is really hot right now. He's hot at the team because I've watched enough film because I was a film junkie. I watched tons of film. I've really had a photographic memory, and I felt like I knew the plays before they even happened. But I would think of things to make me actually hate those teams. And in this game, it was one where I hit the heck out of him. He was with Green Bay, Brett Favre, in Lambeau, and he said, the player, while I hit him and I tried to annihilate him, he jumped up, was like, "What are you doing, Woody?" I was like, "Oh, snap." I snapped out of it so quickly because Woody was what I went by all through growing up in high school until I got to the pros where everybody calling me Blaine Bishop. I was Woody Bishop, even in college.
Okay.
So I knew he knew me, but at the time he was just a guy that I envisioned that I was going to knock his block off to protect myself from not playing him just like anybody else.
That's
and
right.
I snapped out of it in game after he said my name.
Wow.
So that's how deeply and mentally deep I would get throughout a week to prepare for a game, to become actually the hitman.
That's right.
Because I wouldn't say that I was a big hitter growing up. Even in college, I was a great tackler. I wouldn't say I was a knockout artist or anything like that because I didn't do that. That wasn't my style. But I felt like I had to make a niche for myself to make it in this league once I got moved to safety. And that happened halfway through training camp my rookie year because of 3 injuries to other guys. So I was a corner the whole time until they moved me. It was really because of the defense was complex and they felt like I was pretty smart and I could pick up the defense pretty quick and direct people because that person had to direct people where to go. In the 46 defense with Buddy Ryan. So that's kind of how I got there to safety. And it probably was a blessing because I probably would have just been just a good player at corner, probably more a nickel guy than anything else. But I would have never been a 4-time Pro Bowler at that position. I would have never made it. That defense revolved around my skill set and what I did. Yeah.
Well, the reason I was saying that is ask that question is because, some the ones that there are a handful of guys that make it as far as you can go in anything that. They were born into it, groomed to it.
Right.
God gave them the gifts to, and it just worked.
That was not me.
They're the exception to the rule because 99 out of 100 guys in the NFL, that wasn't the case.
That's very true.
You know what I mean? So, but we look at you; those are the ones that their story gets remembered somehow on their grooming, and all that stuff. So, with you, it's just like a business owner or anything else. Like, man, it's always hard in the beginning. There's always going to be struggles and obstacles and trials and tribulations to overcome, and those are what make you the person that you become and that you are, that has all that success, right? So if you hadn't gone through all those things, 2 + 2 wouldn't equal 4.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And one thing I would say, just kind of things that I've said to my son is, try to be the best version of you. And to me, that is all you can do. And that's all I ever strive to. I never strive to make a Pro Bowl. I never strive to be all pro. I strive to be the best version of what the God's gift given me to put out there and perform. And that's what I was going to do every time I got out there. So I can't be Ronnie Lott, even though that was my favorite safety of all time. I don't have his ability. He started off at corner, played corner, perfected it, then moved to safety, and one of the best DBs ever. So all I can do is do the best I can with my ability. So that's really what was my goal as a player. And when I turn on the tape, I want to see the best version of me every single play. And most of that has to do with, number one, just effort. When you get done with the game, you're going to say, this guy was relentless, because there's going to be times you're going to get beat. That's just going to happen, especially as defensive back. But you got to have the fortitude and the will and the belief that I dare you to throw it over here again. And if you don't have those mental, hurdles and that strife to make you mentally tough, even in the pros, there are guys who kind of cave during those moments.
Well, even in the business world, there's a certain level of to stay for a long time, for long periods of time. The businesses do have to evolve with the times, right? Things change, the world changes, everything changes, and you have to stay relevant while staying true to yourself, right? So,
yes.
Now, this is because you mentioned game mode in just a minute ago, and that's kind of leading up to my next question for you, because I don't think we've seen the best of Blaine Bishop just yet. I think the best is yet to come, man. And and that's saying a lot considering the career that you had. But you mentioned game mode, and there's a phrase that has been associated with your name. They call it the clutch gene. The clutch gene.
I got the clutch gene?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I do. I hope I did during that time. It's funny. All I've ever wanted to do was actually broadcast. I got a lot of awards, so I was always speaking. I got an award from Brad Gumble at the Steak and Burger Dinner for Youth of the Year, and I always wanted to be a broadcaster. That's what I want to do. So I've got to do two things in my life, and not many people can say that they dreamed about doing. Doing radio, broadcasting, and actually playing in the NFL. So I feel like I'm just very fortunate to be able to do those things. And to say that I have a clutch gene, I think clutch gene goes back to, as an athlete, as you know, is putting in the work and the due diligence and the hard work and the tough times where everybody else is not working, and to continue to work. And you go back and reflect on those moments when you're working in the game, and then it becomes somewhat easy and you don't even feel like you're in a clutch. You look at that moment, you are so relaxed, you can't even believe it. And people say, hey, do you remember, did you have this great hit on, 2-0-2 count or whatever it was, or you had this great play. And I looked at it like it was just another play, because I was so prepared for it. It was just another play to me. And in hindsight, it really wasn't. But because of the preparation and the confidence you have in what you're doing, it becomes that to you as a player.
So, when I got to the professional level, I learned more about the game of baseball and how to play it. And nothing against anybody, any of the experience in the past. It's that high of a level, and you're surrounded by that good of an athlete, that good of a player. And all of those guys had a unique way of being able to make themselves bigger than any moment. The moment never swallowed them. They could slow the game down. They could breathe. They could literally almost slow down their breathing to a point where they're instantly calm. Yet they're flashbacks of you being on TV where your eyes was as big as he's about to kill somebody. You could just see it is going to happen, but you're just in that moment, and the moment's not bigger than you are. You are bigger than that moment. And that's when you talked about game mode, and then so many people calling it the clutch gene. That's what it is.
Yeah. What's really funny, when you're in a huge stadium of, let's say, 70,000, just like, over at Nissan Stadium where the Titans play. And I tell this to my wife, and she just gets astonished. And that shows you how abnormal it is. I hear all the noise and everything and the fans and the cheering and everything else. But right before the snap, it goes silent.
Wow.
And during the entire play, it is silent. And until the play is over, do I then hear the I hear nothing. That shows you go into this mode of so much concentration that nothing can distract you. And I don't know what that is, but a lot of guys can't just
That's right.
block that out and go to this concentrated mode where you're so focused that you don't hear anything.
That's right. And every underdog movie about sports that's ever played, they usually turn the sound off and it goes into slow motion. That's right during that time.
And it's exactly, you reminded me of, that's what you said. And that's how I felt when I was out there. And then when I turn on the tape and the coaches are watching and go, man, what did you see right here? And to be honest, I couldn't even tell them. To be honest, I played freely, and that's one thing I talk about a lot is because sometimes you can be overcoached and you hesitate just that split second in whatever sport it is. So I would love to play freely once I felt confident in what I was doing against that opponent and what I studied and prepared for them. And if they did exactly that, and sometimes they changed. Peyton Manning changed in a game. Yeah. And so I changed in a game. He thought every time I lined up on the line of scrimmage, I was going to be blitzing. I saw that, and I saw him checking away and running. Okay, guess what? I'm going to line up on the line of scrimmage. I got deep middle. So I got deep middle now. So now we're rolling our coverage down, and you're running the play right to that side. So you must adjust, evolve, and pay attention to what's going on out there.
That's right. In business, your competition's always they're looking at what you did. They're making there's always two sides. There's always an offense and a defense. I
love that part. You know why I love that part, guys? Chess. Because, see, I love you. You're always anticipating the moves or moves ahead besides the move that you're making. Boom. So I love that thought process, and that really carried a lot of weight, and people don't think of it that way in actually playing sports because of those one-on-one battles you have.
That's where the phrase, the heart of a champion, comes from. That's what it is. And you said it yourself. When the moments are they swallow the athlete. The athlete's playing scared. They're playing in fear. They're playing with something to lose. And you just said it before. I had nothing to lose, and I just wanted to be the best version of myself. Yeah. And that's the recipe.
Now, you have to go through those hurdles now. There were times absolutely that I was scared in the moment after getting beat, by, Chris Carter or Randy Moss or somebody, and like, dang, man, I did everything I could right there. There's nothing I can do. So you take yourself back through the phases of what you could have done better, whether it was at the top of the route, at the beginning of the route, to not put yourself in a position where he's at the advantage. I wasn't going to ever out jump a Randy Moss. It just wasn't going to happen. Yep. But what I could do was I could be a little more physical, disrupt the timing of it so he's not at that spot before he gets to the spot. So those are the things that I carried back with me to say that I can do better instead of fearing that next moment. Yeah. Because that's what a lot of players do. They start, having I call them the Bambi eyes, and you looking lost like, dang, man, I couldn't have done anything. There's always something you could have done. You don't know. I mean, you're going to get the same results. That's right. Whether good or bad, but you got to try something else without getting outside of your technique as a defensive back.
So staying true to those founding principles, but making the necessary changes because, like I say, every day's a new day, new challenges, and nobody's undefeated anywhere. And you got to overcome and get back up and play, right? And that's the best part about sports. That's why I love athletes when we're launching businesses or hiring people, because they get that part, right? Mm-hmm. So, all right. So the clutch gene, you played 10 years in the NFL. 10 years in the NFL, that's a long time in the NFL.
I never really looked at it that way. Even at that time, I was always looking ahead, and I was thinking about, okay, man, I want to play with my kid. I was having, different surgeries every off season. And as a professional NFL player, you looked at it as cosmetic. That's crazy to say, right? A scope is just like, it's just normal for occurrence for after the season. You play with a torn lateral meniscus all season. It swells up, and you don't practice very much. And you just play in the game. You kind of do the routine over and over again. And then after the season, you get, your meniscus fixed, So every year it starts. So it started for me to start looking to the next, round of what I'm going to do when I'm finished. And I probably did that second year of the league.
Really?
Yeah, year two. Yeah, year two is when that all started and evolved. I saw Warren Moon get traded. I was like, man, this is big time business. He's a freaking team. what's going on here? So you start understanding this is a business and that you're a commodity and that you better approach it that way if you want to go all in. So one thing that made me think I'm going all in is I'm going to do an internship. Yep, it's Smith Barney. Yeah, I'm going to give me a Series 7. I'm going to do all these things. And, I don't know if I'm going to keep playing football. I don't know if it's going to work out for me because I didn't know. I was still, I just became a starter, but I was through injuries. I didn't know if they're going to bring the guy back. And then, you got to be prepared for, I'm already preparing for round 2 of another, business that I may go after or try to do as a professional, not knowing what's going. Not to say that I'm not still working really hard at that as being an NFL safety, because there's a part of me I was like, I don't think I want to play safety.
All winners anticipate the next play, man.
So that's what I was doing. So, and I looked at it also in a great way. So eventually, if I hit the the home run contract, then I also knew what I was doing. So there was a lot of benefits into that all the way around. Or if I didn't make it, maybe I got into the financial side of it. So I was thinking that in the moment, second year, I thought, man, this. I was seeing guys getting injured and then not play or couldn't play the next year or play the rest of the season. Like, man, then they move on and get another player. You go, man, this is kind of crazy. You start realizing, I was a quick learner after year 1, that this is not fun and games anymore like it was in high school, like I was dreaming about.
Yeah.
And it wasn't all about everybody out here is not making millions of dollars, even if you start. So it was a huge eye opener, especially being the last round that I went. 214 pick that I wasn't making a lot of money at the time.
Yeah.
I'm rooming with, the first round pick and he's making millions. And I'm like, hey, man, can I stay with you? Yeah, cool. I'll pay you $200. Yeah, so that was kind of where I was at, making, basically $140,000 as a rookie contract. So it wasn't, like that. So I always took a professional manner about it. And it could be just because of my upbringing, where I went in the draft. There's a lot of factors. I don't think some players have to maybe grow up sooner than later and realize what's going on around them and what it looks like. So I think I was real mature in that part of it and always thinking that. So even as I got to year 8, 9, and 10, I was doing sports talk radio after the games, really motivated just by I didn't agree with what they were saying on air. Honest. And so I didn't know where they were getting the information from. I don't know if it was passed down from, coaches, what they were hearing or what they believed in, whatever the cause was. I just said, hey, I love to keep people informed. So I just started, doing a little bit of radio after the game. So that was year 8, but never knowing that I would be doing radio or sports talk radio at any moment of time. But continue to evolve and just grow as an individual, as a human being, really, at the same time in an industry that I'm familiar with.
So, a lot of guys, they want to play at the professional level to make their money and then they retire and that's their career, right? But like you went at it as that's just the next step in the evolution of my career. It's just a platform for you to, at worst, even if it wasn't on television, you're in front of 70,000 people every single week watching you do what you do. And that's a unbelievable platform to be able to launch some great things, right? So, and that was what really stood out to me when I first started studying you, get to know you a little bit and all those things. Is like, man, this guy's smart. Like he's got the mindset and he thinks the way that all the great business people think. Like he's got that going on.
Well, yeah, I was just kind of really blessed with the people that were around me, and I always felt like, you're more than just a football player. And I was, as much as I love football, that was just a part of my life. And don't get caught up into, that celebrity status. And I never actually played football for the money. And to be honest, I literally love football. I probably would have played for peanuts, really. I loved it that much. I probably could have went into coaching. I just didn't like that lifestyle. But I love football. I played with a passion.
Yeah, you could tell when you played it.
That no one was going to outwork me. I would have played for free, really, at the end of the day. But it's a business side of it, too. So I think what I'm saying that is because I think some people actually do play for the money. And I think that's where you get wrong. And there's signs and symptoms to certain players that you can start seeing if you're a GM, if you're watching close enough, whether it's a player you're evaluating on another team or an actual player in your team, that you'll know once they get paid, and I call it your pocket's getting heavy. And they won't be the same worker, they won't be the same player, and now they've kind of hit their shot. So for me, it was just the beginning. For most guys, that was the end. So to me, that was, and then there was another thing. Then once you get paid, then, you know, you're like, oh man, now I'm gonna try to play harder. No, to me, I'm gonna play exactly how I was playing because that's why I got the money. So why would I try to be something that I'm not?
That's right.
So I'm gonna continue to be the player that I was.
So powerful.
So I think people get a little confused, and sometimes it's media too putting pressure on players to be more than they were after they got the money. Well, what, you think he's going to be better than he was? Maybe a little bit, but he's still going to be good at what he does and what he brings to the table for his team at that position.
Well, they a wise man once told me, income is the outcome, not the objective. Right, and that was
always there. You go. So you got all the sayings there. I would say that was what I was trying to say right there.
That's right. Very, very powerful, man. So, well, after you got done, you've had how long now? Over a decade in the broadcasting and in radio.
Yeah.
Right. So, and you've done and have a you've had a top rated show for a long time.
Yep. Have there on 104.5 The Zone with some different partners along the way, but yeah, it's been a heck of a ride and journey that I never expected to really, and that just kind of evolved from doing Titans radio, the pre and post game. That's really how it all started. I was just evaluating the games and, you know, telling the Titans, can I be objective, you know, in a good way. You know, I'm not going to agree with everything you guys do or what a player does, no different. So if I disagree, you got to know that that's what I'm going to say, just in a respectful manner. And
honesty is key.
Absolutely. So I said, I would love to do it. I would love to do it out of mutual respect for the organization who gave me a shot to play in the league. So that's been really fun and been a great thing. And that led me to Cumulus Media on 104.5 The Zone probably a year or two after I did that. So they thought I was, you know, capable of doing it. So I said, yeah, sure, let's try it out. If it works for a year and y'all like it, y'all don't like me, hey, cool too. And so that's kind of how I got started. And, you know, here we are.
It's good. And like all the football talk is awesome. And there's nobody better for it. Just for me, the reason that we're talking about what we're talking about today is because I feel like there's just so much more to who you are and what made you who you are and what you have to offer that that's the best part that's yet to come, in my opinion. Because again, man, you can get down and talk about football all day long and you're great at it and you're a great player and that's what makes you good at it. Just like I can talk about baseball all day long or I can talk about business, but like you got to get below the surface. And that's to me, that's the powerful part. That's the coolest part about when you get to hear people do their keynotes and they tell their story and all that stuff is, and like, I think that there is, I know that like you as a keynote, because again, 5'9", right?
Yeah.
Like I was 6 foot in minor league baseball. And I was usually the smallest guy, maybe a middle infielder or two in the clubhouse every year. I was the smallest guy. Like everybody, 6'3", 6'4" is the average at freshman level.
Well, how about this? I was never taller than my mother.
Oh, my God. Oh.
That was actually another go. Yeah, that was another go. She was 5'10", and I never got taller.
Well, maybe they looked at her and they were like, well, one day he might grow. Look,
my mom was 5'10" and my dad was 5'10". They were the same height. And so I took everything from bow legs all the way to everything else from my dad.
Man, that's incredible. So what's so broadcasting versus radio? Like for all of our media folks out there, what's the difference in what makes you good at it, prep, all that kind of stuff? You kind of just fell right into it very naturally.
Well,
we've all seen the athlete that they give them the mic and it's like, oh man.
Right. Well, I mean, you know, hearing the whole story, you know, I was in front of people speaking almost my entire life, even as a young kid.
There it is.
So I think that was comfortable for me being the captain. I was in front of a mic, you know, answering questions, good or bad or indifferent. So this was now something that I was pursuing. And just really, I looked upon it as something to try to educate people on what was going on and what I saw that happened out there and what the actual athlete is thinking during that time. And actually even the coaches. So that's that was my whole objective. I've always had, my goal was, what am I doing it for? And that was really in my mind to educate what's going on the football field.
So we have got a couple more minutes. Yeah. Awesome. So I do got to give the folks a little bit about. So you played with some some amazing your teammates. I mean, it was a great team. You guys were freaking
yes,
tough.
yeah.
Like tough. You know what I mean?
Well, we were mentally tough. They really did a great job of really putting the team together. We had just enough veterans, players like myself when we went on a Super Bowl run, and then we had some young elite level athletic guys who were open-minded and listened and were open to learning. And that really benefited us. It was perfect timing.
Well, you guys knew the true definitions, but the difference between hurt and injured. Injured, you don't play. Hurt, you play. You know, and like, I mean, I hope I coach my son's 12-year-old team and I have to have this talk with their parents all the time. I'm like, yeah, he can't play. I'm like, well, why? He's a little sore. Well, he worked out yesterday. Like, that's what happens after you work out. If you hadn't worked out in a long time, you're sore. It's uncomfortable. That don't mean you're injured. You got to know the difference between hurt and injured.
Well, even at the pro level, you'll find out. I think those guys naturally understand that. But can you play through it and still get your task and job done?
There it is.
You know, so, you know, and when I say that, let's give you a good example of that is like you got an ankle injury. You know, an offensive lineman can tape it up. He's not really playing in space if it's a guard, you know, not a tackle, where he's going against some elite pass rushers. He could maybe fight through it and play through that. Yep. You know, he's got to figure it out, but, you know, the guy that's the backup got to figure out, hey, I got to be ready and practice all week. Where if you're a cornerback and you're, you know, got a ankle that's only like 80%, maybe that's a little different than if you're out there, you know, covering, you know, some elite level wide receiver. So I think that was probably the hardest part for some players, especially for me, when every game was the last game and I felt like I was going to do everything in my power to play. I think that's a little different now, which could be a good thing for the players too at the same time. You know, but everybody's pain tolerance level is different. From Little League, you'll get to see if some guys are tougher than others to the professional level at any sports. You get to see, and some guys are actually just, you know, in it for the money. That could kind of tell you why they're not. Right. So, you know, I felt like I had to play every game. And I was always feeling like I wanted to prove that I belonged and that if you think you drafted this guy to take my spot, I'm going to tell him everything I know. Then I'm still show you that I'm better than him.
That's right.
Yeah, so it was a lot of things. Because when I bring up the backup part of it is because that's what forces some players to actually play through some injuries that they shouldn't actually do. And that is because they're the fear in the NFL of the backup, even though he may not be better than you, they could slash and make a whole bunch of money or, you know, save some money for the cap and then move on to the next player and say, we can get by with this guy for a year or two till we draft a, you know, high draft pick. So that kind of the fear of the guy that's your backup. You know, he's not better than you, but it's a matter of, you know, he makes, you know, 500 and you make $1.5 million. We could save ourselves $1 million. Just keeping the numbers simple. Yeah.
My dad always used to use the Wally Pipp example, you know, and for those that don't know, Wally Pipp was the first baseman for the Yankees, and then he didn't play one day for whatever reason, and the guy that replaced him that day was Lou Gehrig, and Lou Gehrig played like the next 2,100 games in a row. That Wally Pipp never got back out there, right? It's unbelievable. So I always judged my hurt versus injury based off of, is the guy that's going to go in for me, am I hurt enough that he's going to perform better than me? And am I an asset or a liability on the team by being out there at that point? Right. That was how I kind of judged it, you know?
That's exactly what I did. Exactly. And sometimes that was a hurdle because I still felt like I could do enough just because of my knowledge, but sometimes it wasn't going to work out.
That's right. So again, you had some amazing teammates. Any cool stories or anything about those old guys back in the day? Because it was a different time in the league.
Well, I have to say, moving to Tennessee and then finally getting into at that time Adelphia Stadium, now Nissan Stadium. And then drafting Javon Curse really kind of changed everything. We had gone through all the tough times and the move-in and the playing in the two different stadiums from Memphis to Vanderbilt, to then finally having our own uniforms, becoming the Tennessee Titans, and then getting the support there. But there was one interesting piece to the puzzle that really hurt, you know, got us way over the hump, and that was Javon Curse. He was a special talent, a special, you know, all those things we were talking about, just, you know, God's given gift, and he had them. You know, God, it's, you know, 6'5", you know, 275, can run with the wind and probably could beat me in the 40. I refused to race him because I said, I know I can beat you.
And his hands were like that long.
He was a special, you know, people don't know the backdrop. Let me give you a backdrop story. He was a defensive back in high school.
Okay.
Moved to linebacker in college and then moved to defensive end in the pros. So he was continually evolving into the player he became, and probably didn't understand why he was so fast. So, he was just as fast as any DB in the first 5 yards as anybody else. So that was his get off and his speed. And he really solidified our defense into becoming the number one defense that season in a lot of categories, most of the main categories besides Baltimore had the other ones. And he really transformed. So the biggest story there was we're on tape. We're watching a game. And this is it might have been a Monday night game. But we're watching a game the next day, and Javon chases down this receiver, like right behind him. Like you can see him coming. He's gaining ground. I can't remember who the receiver was, but I saw him run around Samari Rowe to get to the receiver. Wow. And so I was like, oh, Samari, man. I think Samari was like, oh, man, my ankle was hurt. I said, man, that was like 40 yards. You could see him coming. I mean, you could see him. So in that same game, I was like, oh. But I didn't know that at the time, right? So in the same game, he's coming across, chasing somebody down the field. Somebody, broke loose, and he's chasing, and I'm chasing. And I see him, and we were like running side by side with each other. And I go, oh, my gosh. And so somebody tackled him. And so we were slowing down, throttling down. And I looked at him and go, man, I didn't say nothing to him. I just looked at him.
Yeah.
And so when we watched the tape the next day, he said, hey, man, I would have got you, because we were talking and jazzing each other in the locker room and the hallways and everything. I said, man, you can't beat me. That'll never happen. So I'm watching it on TV. I mean, on tape, we're watching it. And I go, oh, my, he was gaining ground on me. And I was like, oh, it was an eye-popping, okay. So I told him, I said, let's race. We're going to race after practice, and I'm going to beat you. I'm going to tell you. So we get out there. We're about to race. I go, nope, I'm not racing you. I said, here's what I do. I'm going to tell you, though. If I ever see you on film coming next to me chasing somebody, I cannot have that going around to all the other 31 teams. So I will clip you in the moment at the time on the end game, and they're going to wonder what the heck is going on. Because if you pass me, that means you're the last guy to take it. Right. So I'm clipping you, so that guy's going to score. So that's freaking nature type player he was, and as fast. And then I was always number one on all the fitness tests when they come back, so he started being number one on everything. I mean, him and Samari. So those two, Javon Curse, he turned us the corner for that Titans team and that era. Be special. So because he was a special talent. You
guys were Nashville's team, man. Like, and I've heard I didn't play in Nashville. Nashville has the fans are unbelievable.
We had great fan support. It was the first time I'd ever been in an open air stadium, and I couldn't hear the guy standing right next to me. So we had defensively, we had to come up with hand signals, so to communicate. So we had to learn that through the process. So that was pretty cool. So, and I think we felt, like we finally were home, and this was our team. And I think the city, they believed that. And then we went on a run, and we never lost. I mean, we felt like we were never going to lose at home, and that if we split on the road, we all easily were going to win 12 games.
That's right.
How we looked at it.
That's right. That's a great strategy, man. And everybody remembers the miracle. And then obviously the Super Bowl. Not many guys get to say they played in a Super Bowl. And I can still remember watching it, man. It was an awesome game.
Oh, man. Well, that was a boyhood dream. And I remember, I don't know if you put up some videos of me talking right to the defensive backs right before that game. I'm talking about, hey, man, we live in a dream. Now it's time to go have fun. It's time to go have fun. So let this dream play out the way you want it to, and so you could relax. Just remember, it's just another game.
That's right.
At the end of the day, it became this game, even though it was the Super Bowl.
That's right.
So it was just another game, just to do all the things that you had done before in the past. So it was a heck of an experience. I really that was one of my dreams that I never accomplished, and that was getting a Super Bowl ring. So that was come up a little short there. So, but really appreciate that team and that effort, and I really believe that the team the next year was the better team.
Okay.
Them head to head. I probably said that a couple times. People are like, but they didn't get to the Super Bowl. Well, I know we lost to the Ravens, but that team was better. And the difference was, not only did we know we were good, we had already proven it.
Yep.
We had the confidence in the air about us that made us, and we back-to-back went 13-3. But that team was better, unfortunately. But that shows you have to have breaks, and you got to seize the moment. Don't know when you're going to get back. I'm going to say this. Went to the Super Bowl, played with the living legend, Matthews. And that's the only Super Bowl he ever played in.
Wow.
And he played, almost 20 years.
Long time. A long time.
It was the only time he played in the Super Bowl.
Wow.
Bruce, the living legend, Bruce Matthews.
That's right. So you can be booked for keynotes, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like again, like I think you're just getting started, brother. I truly believe that. So
you let the cat out the bag, man. I can't be telling you.
Well, dude, all I'm saying is it hadn't happened. It hadn't happened yet, but I know some big things are coming for you. The show's rocking and rolling, right? So tell the folks about the show, when it airs. Exciting stuff with that.
Yeah, naturally football season's coming up, so, training camp has started for the Titans. So, yeah, the Blaine and Mickey Show on 104.5 The Zone, 1 to 3. And, if you want to get in contact, if you want to reach out, you could just, everybody's social media now, kind of reaching out, maybe direct you to, the right people if you, want to get me to speak, as well as, anything else that you maybe want to come and, talk to your team or school or whatever it may be, or business or company. So, B Bishop 23 on Twitter, and then Blaine Bishop 23 on IG.
That's right.
And LinkedIn as well, if you want to go that route.
I know Ball State takes advantage of that relationship all the time.
Of course. I've spoken to Ball State. Actually, I'm going to a golf tournament on Friday there to speak to just the university. I've actually spoke to my high school, as well as been a commencement speaker at Ball State. So I've done speaking engagements throughout my entire life, really. I feel like I've been kind of a speaker the whole entire time. You
were the commencement speaker in 2008. Like that's a big gig, dude. That's people remember those.
You know what's so funny, when they asked me, I was like, oh man, because you envision yourself doing certain things, but some things you get an opportunity to do, and it's kind of one of those aha lifetime. I have no choice. I have to do it.
That's right.
It's like, man, I have to do this, because I didn't ever envision myself being a commencement speaker at any university, let alone my alma mater. So, I was so pumped up and psyched up about that. That's probably one of that and speaking at the White House for Big Brothers Big Sisters is probably the two biggest things, and it's because they just kind of, like you have a bucket list of things you want to do, or the bucket list of things that you want to accomplish. Those weren't on there, and they're really some of my favorite moments. Yeah.
Yeah, you were. I mean, I've got, again, a laundry list of awards and accolades and honors and everything else, and that's, again, you're not the stereotypical athlete that, I mean.
I'm definitely not that.
No, and some of those,
I'm probably not even built like one, right?
Some of those interviews are bad, man. They're bad, and so you're the full package. Super smart guy. Again, all the fundamentals of like everything that a business needs to launch to be successful. You got it all in here, and they're connected, man. It's really cool, dude. Like, that was one of the first times I ever spoke to you. It was actually at the ballpark. I went out there to see Dad, and you guys were out there because you got a son who was a really good baseball player.
Yeah, at the time, yeah, no doubt about it.
And that was what I walked away. I was like, man, that was Blaine. He was like, he's a smart dude. That's exactly what Pop said.
I never played baseball at all. A little bit, growing up, but just in the neighborhoods, or playing little league, just rec ball. So never nothing extent. But I love the mental back and forth game that you play. I think it's more mental for me for baseball than anything else. Once I got into it and was really learning everything about it, naturally you got to have some ability, of course, be able to run, throw, catch, and all those things. But I think it's really the mental part of that game that's probably the biggest hurdle for you to overcome as a player.
Yeah.
Understand, especially going against those elite pitchers.
That's right. Last but not least, so you have a son that plays at your alma mater.
Oh yeah. He plays at it. So he's right now he's converted. He never played defensive back, so he converted. He played wide receiver all through high school, so he's converting to cornerback. So he's still through that transition, but hopefully sometime soon he gets special teams. Then it's a process of getting on the field as a defensive back, and then go through those times where you get beat, and then how you respond, and understanding situational moments. As a parent, now that he's playing a position, that I played, and I don't do really any coaching. I've never really coached them. I was always coaching them on the mental side of the game of awareness. As a defensive back, the game is so much against you, and it's so hard to play. You must understand down and distance. You must understand formation, recognition. And if you don't, you're gonna be in the 8-ball. So. This game is different now. It's a passing game, so you're going to get opportunities. When are you going to seize those moments? Or you're only going to get so many opportunities as a defensive back. So, just kind of teaching those things. I let the coaches do all the technique, and all those guys they're great. These college coaches are really good. So I think the part that goes missing because of, the shuffling of the players and transfer portal and all these different things is the mental side of it is kind of missing, of just understanding the game, because now all these guys are just phenomenal athletes.
Yeah.
And they go out there and say, oh, go play. And then you're like, well, if he doesn't understand the game and understand the angles, he still won't be the player that he actually can become. So that's kind of what I'm teaching my son now, which is really cool.
The mental side's missing from the business world too, brother. It's again, the ones that are successful versus not, they just have that.
Now, one thing I could tell you that I did not say is, if you come across a guy who's an elite athlete and has all those other variables that I had, I think I lose probably 8 out of 10 times. But guess what? I will battle them to the end. So all those guys that are like Hall of Fame, type players are in the Hall of Fame. I bet you if you ask them about me, they would say, "Hey man, that dude's pretty good."
Somebody said that about my daddy one time. They said, a guy said, "Hey man, I'm gonna whoop your behind," and the guy, my dad's buddy, said, "That's not a good idea." He said, "Well, you don't think I can whip him?" Yeah. He said, "No, sure you can. It's just gonna take you all day."
Let's go. I'm gonna wear you out, man. Exactly.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. So, any advice for the parents out there? Obviously, being a football player whose dad is Blaine Bishop can't be easy. He's got to come into his own self, figure out who he is. Mm-hmm. Any advice to the parents out there? Because I'm guilty of it. I came from a long line of good baseball player, a good athlete, and it's almost like there's a pressure that comes along, and pressure does one of two things: it bursts pipes and it makes diamonds, right? So, a lot of times it bursts the pipes on these young kids. They're not prepared. So as a parent, what advice would you have for them?
Well, probably a little different from my perspective on, maybe I'm not going to go down the mental hurdle. To me, those things grow, and that's how you grow as an athlete. And you'll figure out who has those kind of traits that, make them kind of, whatever it's clutch guy or a guy when the going gets tough, plays better, even at a young age. You start seeing those, and those things kind of grow, and then maybe they do it later. I would always just say which is even harder today, is because that's just what I was. I think if you can't get it through training, continue to be a multi-sport athlete as much as you can. Even if you get down to 2 or 3. I played 3 sports, but now I know it's getting hard, because even with my son, it was a little hard because you start falling a little bit behind as baseball. If you don't play baseball in off season, you're doing 7-on-7, kind of lose a little bit and you got to catch back up. But try to do that as long as you can. In the same sense, play multiple positions in whatever sport you're playing.
Boom.
Because you never know where you're going to get an opportunity. I just went through about how I was moved to safety. Guess what? I never played safety before in my life until I got to the pros. So having knowledge, though, as a backup safety, even in high school and college, kind of helped me prepare and sped up the process. Yeah. So when I say that in like middle school, high school, play offense or defense, or play second and outfield, or whatever the position may be, third, or be a pitcher, or whatever it may be. But try to be multiple, because all you want is an opportunity to get on the field. I had 3 guys get injured, gave me an opportunity. I may have not wanted to play safety, but I learned to grow to love the position if it was going to give me the opportunity.
That's right.
So I would always say play multiple positions within that sport, which is what I've always taught my son. And so I think that's why he's transitioning a little bit easier, because at least he was a backup and got to play defensive back a little in high school, enough to where he was familiar and it wasn't foreign territory, because you don't want to be behind. So, yeah, multiple sports if you can, as much as you can, as long as you can. And then once you figure out this is where kind of my son lies or daughter lies, I think then playing multiple positions, because there's always going to be somebody better than you at that position at some point in time, whether it's in high school, college, or maybe potentially pro.
That's right. Well, folks, if you're not keeping up with this young man over here, On social, you got to do it. He's taking you on a journey, man. He really is. You get to experience the whole thing. Instagram's Blaine Bishop 23. On Twitter, it's Bishop 23. They don't call him the Hitman for nothing. He's got the clutch gene. Blaine, is there anything else you'd want to leave the folks with today?
The hit streak.
That's right. The
hit man.
That's right.
All day.
All
the
day.
time.
All day, all the time, baby. Well, man, I know you're busy as all get out and all over the place. I can't thank you enough for coming and hanging with us today. Everybody's going to love it. The audience is going to love it. This was fantastic. I've had an absolute blast, man.
Man, this was fun. We got to do this again, Nick.
Anytime, baby. Anytime. Well, folks, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of The Hit Streak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder. God bless.